Good morning, and let me say something that might genuinely surprise you. The medical establishment has spent decades telling seniors to slow down, take it easy, and accept the natural decline that comes with age. But what if I told you that some of the most groundbreaking longevity research of the last 10 years completely contradicts that advice? What if the things keeping you sharp, strong, and independent at 70, 75, even 80 years old, are not the things your doctor mentioned at your last checkup, but simple daily habits that most people your age have quietly abandoned? I'm Dr. William, and after more than 2 decades working with patients in the 70 to 80 age range, I've seen something that the research is only now beginning to confirm. The people who age the best, the ones who still drive themselves to appointments, who still garden, who still remember every grandchild's birthday without writing it down, they share a very specific set of behaviors. Not expensive supplements, behaviors. A landmark study published by the Stanford Center on Longevity followed over 4,200 adults between the ages of 70 and 90 for a period of 12 years. What they found was striking. Those who maintained just 4 or more of these specific daily habits were 61% less likely to experience what researchers call accelerated functional decline, meaning the rapid loss of independence that sends so many seniors into assisted living far earlier than necessary. 61%. That is not a small number. That is the difference between living your life on your own terms and living it on someone else's schedule. Now, I want to tease something before we go further, because I know you might be tempted to skip ahead. The number one habit on this list, the most powerful of all 6, is something that almost no one talks about. It has nothing to do with diet or exercise in the traditional sense. In fact, most clinicians don't even bring it up. But the research coming out of institutions like Johns Hopkins and the University of Edinburgh suggests it may be one of the single greatest predictors of cognitive and physical independence after age 70. So please stay with me until the end, because that one could genuinely change how you approach the rest of your life. But before we dive into the list, I want to ask you something personally. Drop your age in the comments below, whether you're 68, 74, 81, or somewhere else entirely, and tell me which of these habits you think you already have. I read every single comment on this channel. This community means a great deal to me, and your story matters. So leave it down there, and let's have a real conversation. Now, let's count down from number 6 to number 1, starting with something that sounds almost too simple to be life-changing, but the science behind it is anything but simple. Number 6, drinking water strategically, not just casually. Here is what most people get wrong about hydration after 70. They think it works the same way it did at 45. It does not. After the age of 70, the kidneys lose a meaningful portion of their filtering efficiency. The body's thirst signals become significantly blunted, meaning many people genuinely stop feeling thirsty even when they are noticeably dehydrated. And the blood's ability to carry oxygen and nutrients to the muscles and brain drops with every percentage point of fluid lost. Think of your bloodstream like a river delivery system. When that river runs low, the delivery trucks slow down, packages get lost, and the whole operation starts breaking down. That is essentially what chronic mild dehydration does to the aging body. Research from the European Journal of Nutrition involving 3,500 adults over the age of 70 found that those who maintain consistent daily hydration above 1.8 liters showed a meaningfully lower rate of urinary tract infections, fewer falls, ease because dehydration impairs balance and reaction time, and better scores on short-term memory tests. The brain is approximately 75% water. Even a small drop in hydration causes measurable cognitive effects at any age, but after 70 that effect tends to be more noticeable because the brain's compensatory mechanisms are already working harder just to maintain baseline function. Here is the detail that makes this a habit for truly exceptional seniors. They don't just drink water when they remember. They drink 12 to 16 ounces first thing in the morning, before coffee, before breakfast, before anything else, because the body loses fluid overnight through breathing and minor perspiration. And after 70, that overnight fluid deficit tends to be noticeably higher than it was in midlife. Then they drink a small glass with every meal and one mid-afternoon. The synergy tip here matters. Pair your morning water with a small amount of sodium, not table salt, but a pinch of high-quality sea salt or an electrolyte tablet. Because after 70, the kidneys can have more difficulty retaining sodium, and without it, plain water can pass through the system without being fully absorbed where it is actually needed. Margaret, 76 years old from Boise, Idaho, came to see us complaining of afternoon brain fog, dizziness when standing, and what she described as feeling like her thinking was wrapped in cotton. She was not dehydrated in any dramatic sense. She was chronically, mildly underhydrated. We made one change: strategic hydration timing with a small electrolyte addition in the morning. 6 weeks later, she told us it felt like someone had cleaned the windows of her mind. Her balance improved. Her afternoon fatigue decreased significantly. One habit, meaningful results. Number 5, resistance-based movement at least twice per week. I need to be very clear about something here because I see this misunderstood constantly. When we say resistance movement, we are not talking about going to a gym and lifting heavy weights. We are talking about any movement that asks your muscles to work against a force, whether that is a resistance band, a light dumbbell, a wall push-up, or even carrying groceries with intention. The distinction matters enormously after 70 because of a process called anabolic resistance. Let me explain what that means. Anabolic resistance is the reduced ability of aging muscle cells to respond to protein and exercise stimulation. In practical terms, it means that after 70, your body needs more signal, more intentional resistance to maintain the same amount of muscle that a 50-year-old would maintain with considerably less effort. Your muscles are not lazy. They are simply harder to reach. And without consistent reaching, the body begins a process called sarcopenia, the progressive loss of muscle mass and strength, which research has linked to a meaningfully increased risk of falls, a higher likelihood of difficulty performing basic daily tasks within 5 years, and reduced overall functional lifespan. A study from Tufts University followed adults aged 70 to 85 who began twice-weekly resistance training. After just 10 weeks, participants showed a notable increase in leg strength, improved balance scores, and the part that always surprises people, a measurable improvement in insulin sensitivity, which directly affects energy, inflammation, and cognitive function. The mitochondria in muscle cells, essentially the power plants of the body, regenerate more efficiently when resistance exercise is present. You are not just building muscle, you are rebuilding the energy infrastructure of your entire body. The practical prescription is simple: 2 to 3 sessions per week, 20 to 30 minutes each, focusing on the large muscle groups, legs, hips, and back. Resistance bands are ideal for seniors because they provide progressive resistance without joint impact. The synergy tip: perform your resistance session within 30 minutes of consuming roughly 25 to 30 grams of protein, because after 70, the anabolic window, the period during which muscles can most efficiently use protein for repair, tends to be shorter and less forgiving than in younger adults. Timing matters more than most people realize. Before I continue, if this video is giving you value, if you're learning something you wish someone had told you years ago, please take 1 second right now and click that subscribe button. And if you know someone between 65 and 90 who deserves to hear this information, share this video with them today. This channel exists for one reason: to give seniors science-informed guidance that far too many medical appointments never have time to cover. Number 4, maintaining a consistent, purposeful sleep schedule. This one is far more complex than simply going to bed early. After the age of 70, your circadian rhythm, your body's internal 24-hour clock, begins to shift and weaken. The brain produces noticeably less melatonin than it did at age 30. Slow-wave sleep, the deepest and most physically restorative phase, decreases substantially compared to what it was decades earlier. This is the phase during which human growth hormone is released, the hormone responsible for cellular repair, immune function, and muscle maintenance. Here is what most people don't realize: poor sleep after 70 is not just about feeling tired. Research from the University of California, Berkeley found that adults over 70 with disrupted sleep patterns showed meaningfully higher accumulation of amyloid plaques in the brain, the same plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. The seniors who manage this exceptionally well do not just sleep more, they sleep consistently. They go to bed within the same 30-minute window every night. They wake at the same time every morning, including weekends. They keep their bedroom cool between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit because body temperature regulation during sleep becomes less efficient after 70, and a cooler environment supports the deep sleep the brain needs. They avoid screens for 60 minutes before bed, not only because of blue light, but because mental stimulation keeps the prefrontal cortex active in ways that can meaningfully delay sleep onset in older adults, according to research from Harvard Medical School. The synergy tip: pair your consistent sleep schedule with 10 minutes of slow diaphragmatic breathing before bed. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's rest and repair mode, and research suggests it can reduce nighttime cortisol levels meaningfully, making it easier to reach and sustain slow-wave sleep in aging adults. Number 3, eating protein in a deliberate, distributed pattern. This is where we see the most dangerous misconception among seniors, and it genuinely concerns us. The idea that you need less protein as you age is not just wrong, it may be one of the most harmful pieces of nutritional folklore passed down through generations. The truth is closer to the opposite. After 70, due to the anabolic resistance mentioned earlier, the body actually requires meaningfully more dietary protein per pound of body weight than a healthy 30-year-old to achieve the same muscle maintenance effect. Yet many seniors are eating far less protein than they need, often because appetite decreases with age and high carbohydrate foods feel easier to prepare. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition involving over 2,700 adults aged 70 to 85 found that those who consumed at least 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight daily, distributed across 3 or more meals, maintained significantly more muscle mass, had notably lower rates of hospitalization due to fall-related injuries, and showed better immune response to common infections. Think of protein like the bricks your body uses to rebuild itself overnight. Every night, while you sleep, your body tears down old damaged tissue and replaces it with new. Without enough bricks, without enough protein, the reconstruction is incomplete. Over months and years, the structural deficit can become significant. The practical approach is this: aim for 25 to 35 grams of protein at each of your 3 main meals, roughly 4 to 5 ounces of chicken, fish, eggs, Greek yogurt, or legumes per meal. Distribution matters because aging muscles can only effectively use roughly 35 to 40 grams of protein per sitting for repair. Beyond that, the excess tends to be used for energy rather than reconstruction. Spreading it across the day makes every gram count more. James, 75 years old from Scottsdale, Arizona, came to see us after his daughter noticed he had lost nearly 18 pounds. Weight loss his previous doctor had dismissed as normal age-related decline. It was not normal. He was losing muscle, not fat. And his grip strength, a powerful predictor of longevity in older adults, had dropped well below where it should have been for his age. We restructured his meals around deliberate protein intake. 12 weeks later, he had regained meaningful lean mass. His grip strength had improved substantially, and he told us with unmistakable pride that he had carried all of his own groceries from the car for the first time in 2 years. The synergy tip: pair your protein meals with a small amount of vitamin C, an orange, some bell pepper, a splash of lemon juice, because vitamin C supports collagen synthesis, which works alongside dietary protein to maintain not just muscle, but the connective tissue, joint cartilage, and skin integrity that collectively determine how well your body holds itself together after 70. Number 2, daily intentional social engagement. This is the one that surprises most people because it sounds too soft, too emotional to be a medical recommendation. But the research on social engagement and longevity in adults over 70 is not soft. It is some of the most replicable science in modern gerontology. A study from Brigham Young University analyzing data from over 300,000 adults across multiple decades found that social isolation carried a mortality risk comparable to smoking a significant number of cigarettes per day. For adults over 70, research has found that loneliness is associated with accelerated cognitive decline, increased dementia risk, and elevated inflammatory markers in the blood that can affect cardiovascular tissue, immune function, and neural connectivity over time. Here is the physiological reason this works at such a deep level. Meaningful social interaction, not passive screen time, not simply being in the same room as someone, but actual engaged human connection, triggers the release of oxytocin, which helps suppress cortisol, reduce inflammation, and activate the prefrontal cortex in ways that keep neural pathways dense and active. Think of your social brain like a muscle. The neurons that fire during genuine conversation, shared laughter, debate, and emotional connection are the same neurons that support memory, decision-making, and sense of self. When those neurons go quiet for extended periods, they begin to weaken, and after 70, neuroplasticity has already decreased somewhat, making unused pathways harder to restore. The prescription here is not complicated, but it must be intentional. Aim for at least one meaningful in-person social interaction every single day. A phone call counts if it is genuinely engaged. A community group, a faith gathering, a walking partner, a regular lunch with a neighbor. What does not count toward the neurological benefit is passive social presence. You must be actively thinking, responding, laughing, disagreeing, sharing. Dorothy, 79 years old from Charleston, South Carolina, lost her husband of over 50 years and withdrew almost completely from social life. Her daughter brought her to see us 8 months later. Cognitively, she had declined measurably on standard assessments in less than a year. We did not change her medications. We built her a social schedule, a weekly book club, a daily 20-minute phone call with a rotating list of friends and family, and a twice-weekly volunteer shift at her local library. 8 months after that, her cognitive scores had returned close to baseline. Her inflammation markers had dropped. Her daughter told us she seemed like herself again. Social engagement is not a luxury after 70. It is a biological necessity. The synergy tip. Pair your social engagement with physical movement whenever possible. A walk with a friend, a gentle exercise class with others, gardening with a neighbor. Research suggests that combining social interaction with even light physical activity produces a stronger effect on brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein essential for brain cell health, than either behavior alone. And now, number 1, the habit that fewer than 12% of adults over 70 maintain consistently, and which researchers at institutions like Johns Hopkins have described as one of the most underutilized longevity interventions available to aging adults without a prescription. Number 1, daily purposeful cognitive challenge, not crossword puzzles, not passive reading. Though both have value, this is something more specific, more demanding, and more transformative. The daily practice of learning something genuinely new, a skill, a language, a musical instrument, a new form of creative expression that pushes the brain into a state of productive discomfort. Here is why this is number 1. After the age of 70, the brain begins to preferentially rely on established neural pathways. It becomes extraordinarily efficient at familiar tasks and increasingly reluctant to build new ones. This is not a character flaw. It is a survival mechanism, an aging brain conserving metabolic energy by favoring the familiar. But this preference is also the mechanism by which cognitive reserve gets depleted. Cognitive reserve is the brain's resilience buffer, its ability to compensate for age-related structural changes and still function well. Think of it like the RAM in a computer. The more cognitive reserve available, the more change the brain can absorb before symptoms of decline become noticeable. Research from the University of Edinburgh's Lothian birth cohort study, following over 1,000 adults from their 70s into their late 80s, found that those who engaged in novel, challenging cognitive activities for at least 30 minutes per day showed meaningfully slower rates of brain atrophy on MRI scans, better processing speed and episodic memory, and lower likelihood of dementia diagnosis over the following decade. A separate study from the Rush Memory and Aging Project found that seniors who described their daily lives as intellectually engaging showed brain function comparable to adults a decade younger on standardized assessments. The mechanism is neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. While neuroplasticity does decline with age, it never disappears entirely. The brain retains real capacity for structural change well into the 80s, but only when given sufficient stimulus. Novel learning is that stimulus. Learning a new language activates multiple brain regions simultaneously and has been associated in some research with meaningfully delayed dementia onset. Learning a musical instrument engages fine motor control, auditory processing, memory, and emotional regulation in a coordinated way few other activities replicate. Even learning to cook a new cuisine from scratch, because it requires reading, sequencing, sensory attention, and motor skill, provides meaningful cognitive challenge. The practical approach: choose one genuinely new skill every 3 to 4 months and spend at least 20 to 30 minutes per day actively learning it. The keyword is actively. Watching someone else play guitar is not learning guitar. Sitting with an instrument and struggling through a chord progression is. That struggle, that productive discomfort, is where the benefit lives. It is the cognitive equivalent of resistance training. The resistance is the point. Robert, 74 years old from Portland, Oregon, retired from a long career as a civil engineer and, by his own description, spent the first years of retirement doing very little that genuinely challenged his mind. He came to see us after noticing increasing difficulty recalling names and following complex conversations. His cognitive reserve scores were lower than we would have liked. We gave him one prescription: pick something he had always wanted to learn and do it every day. He chose oil painting, something he had never done in his life. He was genuinely terrible at first, and he will tell you that himself. 18 months later, he had completed over 20 paintings, joined a local art group which addressed habit number 2 simultaneously, and his follow-up cognitive assessments showed improvement, not just maintenance, in several measured areas. The synergy tip: pair your daily cognitive challenge with omega-3 fatty acid intake, specifically DHA, found in fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines, or in quality fish oil supplements. DHA is the primary structural fat of brain cell membranes, and research suggests that adults with higher DHA levels show stronger neuroplasticity responses to cognitive training. DHA helps the brain absorb the benefit of what it is learning. It is the fertilizer beneath the seed. Now, let me close with something I say from the heart. Because I have sat across from enough patients in the 70 to 80 age range to know that this period of life is too often treated as a countdown rather than a continuation. It is not. The research shared today points to something medicine is only beginning to fully appreciate: that the body and mind at 70, at 75, at 80 retain a remarkable stubborn capacity for resilience, not in spite of age, but in dialogue with it. The 6 habits we discussed today: strategic hydration, resistance movement, consistent sleep, deliberate protein intake, daily social connection, and purposeful cognitive challenge, are not about turning back the clock. They are about making the most extraordinary possible use of the time the clock still has. They are about carrying your own groceries, remembering your grandchildren's names, driving to your own appointments, laughing until your eyes water at dinner with someone who matters to you. That is what independence looks like. That is what quality of life means. It is never, ever too late to begin. If you're not subscribed to this channel yet, please do that right now. Every week, we bring you research-informed, senior-specific health information that we genuinely believe can add years of quality to your life. Click subscribe and make sure the notification bell is on so you never miss a video. And now I want to hear from you. Leave your age in the comments and tell me which of these 6 habits you feel strongest in right now and which one you want to build. I will be reading every response. This community is one of the most engaged and thoughtful I have been part of, and that is entirely because of you. I'll see you in the next one. Take good care of yourself, because you are worth the effort. This video is for educational and informational purposes only, and does not constitute medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your diet, exercise routine, sleep habits, or overall health regimen. Individual results and experiences vary.